Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 99, Tracy Gets Bugged. The episode begins with Ash and the gang having arrived on a new island known as Marika Island, and Ash instantly recalling his Lapras into its Pokeball. Tracy was particularly hyped to be on this island as he sent out his Marill and Venonat. The reason for his excitement, which Ash inquired, was because he was excited to catch some bug Pokemon, which the island was known for. Hearing about bug Pokemon obviously makes Misty extremely frightened, as she had a fear of them, and her fear only gets intensified as a Beedrill then flies overhead. Regardless of Misty's fear, which Tracy wasn't even aware of yet, Ash and Tracy decide to go and catch some bug Pokemon, with Tracy asking Misty to come along, although Misty denies, saying she'd rather just stay on the beach and suntan. Obviously due to her bug fear, but like I said, Tracy didn't know this yet. Ash proceeds to inform Tracy, whispering so that Misty didn't get embarrassed. But Tracy then repeats what Ash just whispered to him out loud in disbelief, like, "What? Misty's afraid of bugs? That's so fucking stupid." And as a result, Misty gets pissed off and steps on his foot. Wow, that's a new, punishment. Not only does she step on his foot, she also decides to reluctantly join Ash and Tracy, wanting to prove herself. They then enter the island's forest, and immediately see their first bug Pokemon sighting, some Caterpie. Ash gets excited, wanting to catch one, stating that he hadn't caught one in a long time. So what, you just wanted to replace the Butterfree that you had? Didn't you criticize Gary for wanting to do the same thing? Anyways, Misty's like, "You don't need a second Caterpie, bro," and drags him away, presumably due to still having a fear of Caterpie, but Tracy warns Misty not to drag Ash the way that they were going, as there was a pincer nearby that had been detected by Marill and Venonat's radar senses and hearing senses respectively. Misty ignores the warnings, simply just wanting to get away from the Caterpie, but sure enough, this results in her running into the pincer, so she immediately drags Ash back the other way, where Tracy was, and they all reunite and continue down the path in the forest. Ash thanks the Venonat and Marill for trying to give them a proper warning, insinuating that Misty should have listened to them, and Tracy agrees, stating how useful Venonat and Marill were, with their hearing and radar senses. As if on cue, their senses then pick up the trace of yet another Pokemon, and they go running after it into the trees, leading Ash and the gang to follow. It's revealed that what Marill and Venonat were tracking was an injured Scyther, and boy was it injured, like it was just laying there absolutely fucked. Ash and the gang immediately run up to it, with Ash using his Pokedex on it, even though he's already seen a Scyther plenty of times before, and Tracy immediately tries to give it some medicine, but then it wakes up and glares at Tracy in anger, implying it didn't want to take the medicine, causing Tracy to jump back in fear. The Scyther tries to attack Tracy, but it can't, as it's too weak. This leads Ash to state that they should try catching it in a Pokeball so that they could take it to a Pokemon Center and heal it, adding that since it was too weak to battle, it should be an easy catch. However, the Scyther obviously really didn't want to be caught, as it managed to get up and deflect the Pokeball with its arms. It immediately falls back down though, being too weak, so Ash takes the opportunity to try and shock it with a Thunderbolt, but he's immediately stopped before he can do so by Tracy, who's like, "Yo, the thing's already dying, if you Thunderbolt it, you're literally just gonna finish it off," and thus make it impossible to catch. Tracy then commands his Venonat to use Sleep Powder, stating that Sleep Powder should be more effective since it wasn't a damaging move, and would instead just make the Scyther easier to catch since it would be asleep. Fortunately for Tracy, his plan works, and he's able to capture the Scyther once it falls asleep, and they proceed to rush it to the Pokemon Center. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was in their Meowth balloon, not spying on Ash and the gang this time surprisingly, but instead just looking for Pokemon to steal. Just then though, a Beedrill flies by, maybe the same one from earlier in the episode, and pops a hole in Team Rocket's balloon, sending them blasting down into the forest. They immediately crawl out from the remains of the Meowth balloon, and look around to see plenty and plenty of bug Pokemon. Caterpie, Weedle, Paris, Metapod, and some Scyther! Including one with a special marked X on its head that served as battle scars that indicated that it was the leader of the Scyther group. The Scyther wastes no time, absolutely decimating Team Rocket, so much that they scream for minutes on end, with their screams being echoed all throughout the forest. Surprisingly, no one hears them though. Meanwhile, now at the Pokemon Center on the island, Nurse Joy was treating Scyther's wounds, with Ash and the gang watching through the window. They were watching through the window, likely because Misty was concerned for the group's safety, because she noticed how Scyther was glaring at Tracy, implying that it was really mad at him for catching it. After a bit more treating, Scyther is then wheeled out of the emergency room, and Nurse Joy assures Ash and the gang that Scyther would be okay, it just needed some rest. But are you sure? It looks pretty bad. Tracy tries to comfort the Scyther, with it now technically being his Pokemon and all, but Scyther isn't having none of it, completely just ignoring him and slapping him with his claw. Nurse Joy then reveals that Scyther's injuries were so immense in the beginning that it must have only been caused by another Scyther. Knowing that Scyther lived in swarms, this led Nurse Joy to suggest that perhaps Scyther was battling another Scyther for leadership over the Scyther swarm, and it lost, likely due to the other Scyther being faster and younger. When Ash and the gang deny that the Scyther could have been in a swarm since they found it by itself, Nurse Joy states that it simply could have been exiled from the swarm as a result of losing the battle, and the only way it could return to the swarm is if it won another leadership battle. Ash then decides to call Professor Oak, knowing that he would be happy to hear about Tracy's capture of such a rare Pokemon like Scyther, and that Tracy would probably like to talk to Oak as well. Sure enough, Oak congratulates Tracy on catching the Scyther, but even though his idol just fucking congratulated him, Tracy doesn't respond with much happiness, as he was too concerned about Scyther's well-being, and its own happiness. Oak realizes this, and after hearing about what Nurse Joy said, he comes to the conclusion that Scyther was likely unhappy due to losing the battle, and soon after that been caught by Tracy, and that it had lost faith in itself as a result. Oak suggests that if he wants to make Scyther happy again, then he's going to have to help it get its confidence back, which had been completely shattered after those events. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket, they had managed to escape from the Scyther by running away, but James and Meowth were still terrified as they looked at what had happened to Jessie's hair. She had been given a terrible-ass haircut by the Scyther. Jessie immediately pulls out her pocket mirror and sees the horror for herself, and immediately dashes to go after the Scyther again, wanting revenge for making her ugly. Meowth warns her, though, that she shouldn't go in unprepared, and instead of just trying to kill the Scyther like she was going to, they should just try and capture them so that they can get a benefit from their boss, Giovanni. Jessie only hears the capture part and agrees to that, but still proceeds to run to the Scyther recklessly, leading James and Meowth to take action and tackle her to the ground, reminding her of the planning part. They needed to go in with a coordinated plan. Jessie's initially against this idea, but James then informs her that if she charged in recklessly and got beat up by the Scyther again, then they could make her haircut even worse, turning it into a crew cut. At the thought of this, Jessie immediately agrees with Meowth and James that yes, they need to plan. Back at the Pokemon Center, Tracy was trying his best to bond with the Scyther, wanting to make it happy again, but Scyther wasn't having any of it. Ash then comes up to Tracy and suggests that if he wants to make Scyther happy again, he should help Scyther train for a rematch against the Scyther that defeated it, as he stated that if he was depressed over a loss, the main thing that would cheer him up would be beating his opponent. Tracy thinks this is a good idea, and sees if Scyther showed any excitement at Ash's suggestion, but it just laid there emotionless. Back with Team Rocket, they had managed to locate the Scyther swarm that attacked them earlier, washing themselves in a pond. Meowth then revealed Team Rocket's plan, which was nothing but a goddamn bazooka. Wow, so creative. I'm sure you spent a lot of time planning that. But regardless, Jessie fires it, and it fires out a whole bunch of goo, which make it hard for the Scyther to move. It's because of this that Meowth is then able to fire a second bazooka, which has a net in it, and the net is able to instantly capture all of the Scyther, since they can't move. So that's what makes this plan creative. They use 2 bazookas instead of 1. Due to being captured, the Scyther all scream out in anger, and Tracy's Scyther manages to hear all of these cries. It tries to rip off all of its bandages, with Nurse Joy helping it, thinking it was just uncomfortable and wanted some new ones. But it actually wanted the bandages removed so it could be free and proceed to escape from the Pokemon Center in an attempt to go aid the Scyther, shattering the window on its way out. However, it could only make it a few feet before falling back down, being too weak still. Tracy tries to inform it of this and tells it to get some rest before going to help, but the Scyther simply pushes him away and goes back into the air, flying off. Ash surmises that the Scyther must have wanted to go see the other Scyther, not just to save them, but in order to prove itself that it was stronger than the current leader. This leads Tracy to remark how Scyther had such a strong will and heart, even though its body wasn't strong. And Ash and the gang then proceeded to follow after the Scyther to make sure that nothing too bad would happen to it, with Nurse Joy reminding them to worry about themselves as well. Finally, an adult who somewhat cares about kids in this universe. Meanwhile, Team Rocket had hung the captured Scyther and their net from a tree, and Jessie proceeded to poke them with a stick, trying to taunt them and make fun of them as she laughed evilly, finally having her revenge against them. James and Meowth were freaked out by Jessie's evil laugh, stating that she's probably gone crazy due to losing her hair. Jessie overhears this and defends that her hair was the most important thing in the goddamn world to her, as it was her only friend as a child, once again implying that she had no fucking friends. She then evil laughs more, which just freaks out James and Meowth more, as she runs over to the Scyther and states that she was going to do something even worse than what she had already done to them. Thankfully, though, we don't get to see what this is, as in a Deus Ex Machina moment, Tracy's Scyther shows up to save the other Scyther, and immediately cuts the net with its claws. It looks back at its swarm to make sure it didn't injure any of them with its claws, but then it looks at Team Rocket, glaring at them evilly, giving them its full attention. It was ready to give them a beating all on its own, but just then, though, Ash and the gang showed up, and the first thing they noticed wasn't even the Scyther, but Jessie's terrible hair, which they made fun of, leading Jessie to get extremely pissed off, and James to laugh as a result. Jessie then demands James to focus, as they proceed to do their motto, revealing their plan to send out their Pokemon, which they proceed to do. James, of course, sends out his Weezing and Victory Bell, and Jessie sends out her Arbok and Lickitung. Having defeated these Pokemon many times at this point, Ash wasn't even remotely concerned. He was more just annoyed at the fact that Team Rocket had done their motto once again, like they never quit. James then declares he was going to do his absolute best to get a promotion from Giovanni, as he proceeds to order Weezing to use Smokescreen, causing black smoke to go everywhere, as Ash sends out his Pikachu. Dude, does Weezing know anything that's not Smokescreen or Smog? Like, damn. The Smokescreen is as weak as usual, as Scyther is able to quickly get rid of it by spinning around. Ash wonders what this move was, so he consults his Pokedex, which reveals it was Swords Dance. That's definitely not what Swords Dance is in the games, but okay. Even though Weezing's Smokescreen had just been decimated, Team Rocket still thought the Scyther was immensely weak, as they noticed how it could barely stand up at this point, and proceed to make fun of it for being an old frail bastard, blaming that as the reason why it was so weak, not knowing that it was injured. The Scyther then angrily cuts off Team Rocket's taunting, though, as it says something in its Pokemon language. Meowth is able to translate, revealing that Scyther essentially said, "Hey, get the fuck away from my family of Scyther, bitch," revealing the fact that it didn't really care about beating the leader at all. It more so just wanted to prove itself to its swarm that it could protect them. Team Rocket then proceed to try and attack the Scyther, but before they can do so, Pikachu runs up, wanting to help it. However, Scyther declines the help, saying that it wanted to do this on its own. Ash thinks that Scyther is being too reckless and orders Pikachu to help anyways, but then Tracy comes up to Ash and is like, "No bro, Scyther's right, you need to let it do this on its own, that's the only thing that's gonna make it happy." And Ash then agrees, with Scyther giving Tracy a nod of respect, finally. Meowth was the first one to attack Scyther, but Scyther quickly got rid of Meowth with no problem, by just simply using a cut attack on it. Lickitung and Victory Bell then try and attack at once, however, Scyther just dodges them by flying up into the air. And as a result, Lickitung and Victory Bell bump into each other, with Victory Bell taking this as a threat, so it bites Lickitung just as it would James. Arbok then jumps at Scyther while it's still in the air, but Scyther then uses Double Team to create a copy of itself, which confuses the Arbok on which one to hit, so it isn't able to hit any of the Scyther, therefore losing all of the momentum that it had and sending itself plummeting back down to the ground. Scyther then falls back to the ground itself, though, and tries its best to rest, as it was getting too weak. Even it knew this. Victory Bell took the opportunity of Scyther being weak to try and attack it again, and Tracy knew what this attack was before it hit, being a Razor Leaf. Due to this plot convenience of Tracy knowing the Razor Leaf was coming, he was able to warn the off-guard Scyther before it hit, so the Scyther could slice the leaves with its cut attack. Ash and Misty obviously questioned Tracy on how he was able to know that the attack was coming, believing that there must be a reason other than plot convenience, and Tracy justifies that he knew because he was a Pokemon watcher and had seen the Victory Bell move like that before, the last time it used a Razor Leaf. Essentially, he saw the specific way Victory Bell moved, and surmised from that it was going to use Razor Leaf. The battle wasn't over yet, though, as Scyther tried its best to dodge a Poison Sting from Arbok. Fortunately, it was able to, but after it did, it immediately fell to the ground, leaving it unable to dodge a second one. Fortunately, the episode's true Deus Ex Machina moment comes in, as the current leader Scyther then jumps in to block the Scyther from the second Poison Sting, wanting to prove itself as well. It was then 2 against 4, as all 4 of Team Rocket's Pokemon charged at the Scyther, but fortunately, the Scyther were too good of a team, despite having a rivalry, and Tracy's Scyther proceeded to bounce off of the leader Scyther, catching Team Rocket's Pokemon off guard and defeating them with a single cut attack. Even with their Pokemon down, Team Rocket didn't know when to quit. In fact, Jessie was just even angrier, as she tried to use the bazooka yet again on Tracy's Scyther this time. Damn, trying to kill the Pokemon now? Thankfully, Pikachu then intervenes, using Thunderbolt. And you know what? I think this was fair, because it's not like it helped Scyther battle, it helped it against a bazooka. That's totally different. With Team Rocket severely injured from this, Scyther proceeds to give the finishing blow, using its cut attack, giving Team Rocket Mohawks, the fucking worst possible hairstyle, as punishment. Not letting Meowth go free either, as it then ripped off some of its fur with its claws, causing Team Rocket to run away in fear. That's right, they didn't blast off this episode weirdly. With Team Rocket dealt with, Tracy congratulated Scyther on the win, as Scyther gave Tracy yet another nod of respect. Yay, they were friends now. And Scyther proved it could protect its swarm. Speaking of the swarm, they then all went into the pond to clean off all the sticky glue that was still on them. And Tracy Scyther and the current leader Scyther shook claws, indicating their newfound respect for each other, after fighting together and seeing each other's strength. With that, the rest of the Scyther swarm walk off, and Tracy Scyther does not join them, instead returning to Tracy's Pokeball, now happy to be his Pokemon. Tracy also now felt comfortable officially declaring the Scyther as his Pokemon, and jumped up in excitement, stating that he caught a Scyther, just like Ash would do when he caught a Pokemon. Ash points this out, and comments how if Tracy was going to copy his little gimmick there, then he had to do it properly, insinuating that he wasn't. The episode ends with Ash trying to teach Tracy the proper way, as Misty, Pikachu, and Togepi look on in annoyance, as well as sheer boredom.